This episode is supported by Stamps.com, where you can buy and print official U.S. postage, any letter, any package, using your own computer and printer. For a 4-week trial and a special $110 bonus offer, go to Stamps.com, click on the mic, and enter the promo code HERD.
Hi, it's the Herd. SeatGeek is always the first place you should go to look for tickets to a game or concert. They search multiple ticket sites, ensuring that you get the best possible deal. That's SeatGeek. They do all the work, save you time and money. To get a $20 rebate on tickets, download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab and click add a promo code. And that promo code will be HERD. SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. Download the SeatGeek app, enter the promo code HERD today.
This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, we are live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Election Day in America. Christine Leahy joining me as always. Get out there and vote. We voted no on Proposition F yesterday, the fade pattern.
I didn't see that one in the ballot today.
Yeah, it wasn't. I tried to get it on the ballot. California wouldn't allow it on the ballot. I want to start with this today. So, as the father of kids, I not only have kids, but I hang out with people with kids. And that's what happens when you're a parent. You start being friends with people who have kids. Like when you're young, you're like 20-year-old guy, right? You have friends with people who share sort of your lifestyle. A party guy hangs out with party guy. Movie guy hangs out with movie guy. Workout guy hangs out with workout guy. Then you get to be 30 and you have kids, and 40, and you start hanging out with people who have kids because your kids start doing stuff. Little league practice, soccer practice, whatever your kids do, right? And here's what I've noticed through the years about aggressive kids. Aggressive kids are harder to parent because no parent wants to yell at their kids all day. They don't. No mom wants to be screaming at their son all day. No dad wants to be screaming at his daughter or son all day. So when a kid's aggressive, he just naturally gets away with more. And that is what we have with the Seattle Seahawks, who again last night on Monday Night Football alone, the third time, proved they're the hardest team in the NFL to officiate because they're hyper-aggressive. That's what they are. They're the hyper-aggressive kid, and the parents / the officials are struggling with them. I mean, how many times are we going to see Seattle, just on Monday Night Football, get officiating breaks? The Fail Mary against Green Bay. Last year, the batted ball in the end zone, illegal against Detroit. Last night, the field goal snafu, Richard Sherman, not called for unsportsmanlike conduct or roughing the kicker. Even earlier this year, Seattle with Julio Jones in Atlanta. Incredibly difficult to officiate. Listen, here's what Pete Carroll does. And this is what he did at USC. They were often heavily penalized at USC. But they were so hyper-aggressive to the point where the NCAA put them on probation that a lot of times at USC and Seattle, refs kind of put their hands in the air. I mean, Pete Carroll in Seattle, Adderall busts, practice violations. Often his teams incur a lot of penalties. At USC, NCAA violations. Pete's teams are a little reckless. Pete's teams are a little out of control. But it is a culture that Pete creates. High velocity, big emotion, difficult to officiate. And you saw it again last night. You saw it against Atlanta earlier this year. You saw it against Green Bay Hail Mary. You saw it against the Detroit Lions. Years and years ago, Jerry Sloan was a good player in the NBA. He was a tough guy. I think Jerry Sloan mostly played for the Chicago Bulls. And then he coached the Utah Jazz with John Stockton and Karl Malone. Well, Jerry Sloan's teams mirrored Jerry Sloan. Very good on defense, very aggressive, very tough, and very physical. At home, because again, like the parent with the aggressive kid, NBA refs in Salt Lake City don't want to be blowing the whistle 70 times. So during the Jerry Sloan era, Utah never won a title, but they had the best home record. They had the best home record because officials and parents don't want to be blowing the whistle. And at home, especially with intimidating crowds in Utah or Seattle, you get away with it. Those Utah teams had the best record during Sloan's reign. We're the best team. They don't win any titles. So I think this is part of the genius of Pete Carroll. I remember there's a story out there that when Pete was part of the New England Patriots staff, right? When they were going on the road and the jet was turning and flying into the airport, Pete would be on the back of the plane with a cart and he'd be surfing down the aisle. That's Pete. That's crazy Pete. And it works for him. What I saw last night, I'm going to give you a minute of tape. There was a play at the end of the half, and this is classic Seahawks. The referees are lost. It throws the game into turmoil. It forces the Buffalo Bills to react as Seattle is proactive, as Richard Sherman blows up a play. We edited it down. It's wildly confusing. Seattle got away with it once again on Monday night at home. Here's the play. Here's the moment.
Oh, boy, are they offside. Whoa. They went through and attempted the kick, and now Carpenter down grabbing his knee.
Prior to the snap,
Ooh.
offside, number 25, defense, unabated to the kicker. It's a 5-yard penalty. Trainers came onto the field to attend to kicker number 2. Number 2 will have to leave the game.
My goodness. Which means they can't try the field goal.
How can they not make this call? We've had plenty of time to look at it. The kicker got roughed. He got hurt. That's the right call to make.
Well, here's what Rex Ryan is saying now. Spike the ball fast. That will count as Carpenter being off for a play, and then they'll try the field goal. So now here's Carpenter to bring an end to a wild first half. And fittingly, it is good.
Prior to the snap, delay of game.
Oh, my goodness.
Offense, 5-yard penalty. Be 1 second on the clock.
This is unbelievable.
The official didn't back away from the football till there was 5 seconds left on the play clock. Now it's a 54-yard try. And a knuckle ball that is no good. Rex Ryan looked like he couldn't decide whether he wanted to give the official an earful on the way off or just walk off. And he decided restraint was the better way to go.
Utter confusion caused by Pete Carroll's almost out of control, hyper-aggressive culture. I watched it at USC for years. It works for him. I've watched it at Seattle. They're the hardest team in the National Football League to officiate. Now, you either understand that or you think the NFL just wants Seattle to win a bunch of games, which doesn't make any sense because geographically, they're the most isolated team in the NFL. They're not New York. They're not L.A. They're not Chicago. They're not Dallas. They're not a glamorous city. They're not a massive city. Of all the teams in the NFL, they're not even a traditional powerhouse like a Green Bay. You either think the NFL's helping Seattle win games, they're for Pete Carroll, or you come to the conclusion, which I have watching Pete's teams, this is the culture he creates. They are maddeningly difficult to officiate. They're the aggressive kid the parent doesn't want to yell at all the time. So the kid gets away with more. And that's what they've done. And that's what they do. So it's good to have you in today. We are absolutely jammed today. We are absolutely packed. So last night, I'll shift gears here. So last night, the Warriors, the roller coaster, the Warriors set an NBA single game record. They had 13 3-pointers. And you're going to hear every sportscaster in America tell you, oh, what a night, the Warriors. But it's time for Chef Colin sprinkling in the truth this morning. I'm going to sprinkle in the truth this morning. You can look at all those 3-pointers. What's Chef Colin sprinkling? Looks like trout there, salmon. Did you notice the free throws by the Warriors? They shot 12 and were out-rebounded again. Golden State now is 20th in three-point percentage. That's kind of alarmingly low, right? But the problem with all these three-pointers, and last night, well, they shot 35, they don't create free throws. So think of all these brilliantly skilled offensive players. Durant, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry. 12 free throws. The less talented Pelicans almost got to 30. So, do you know where LeBron's team is in shooting free throws? Oh, they're 7th. So I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the NBA this year. And get ready for it. People are talking about rigged elections. Wait until you hear the rigged NBA final. Golden State's going to get to the final against Cleveland. And LeBron's team is going to shoot more free throws in every single game. Why? Because Golden State was finesse last year. They've become even more finesse. 35, 43s every game. Let Chef Colin sprinkle the truth on your salmon, on your trout, or whatever you're cooking. That this offense is going to be spectacular, and they're going to set all sorts of records, and they're going to have amazing nights. But even last night, setting a record at home, they didn't blow out the Pelicans, the lousy Pelicans. They're not physical. They do not get to the free throw line, and they get out-rebounded generally every night. And they're going to face Cleveland in that final, and Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love and LeBron James are going to be sitting at the free throw line, hopefully standing. 12 free throws last night. There's your sprinkling of the truth. Everybody's paying attention to the threes. You don't get free throws shooting 24-footers falling away. So I think those free throw numbers are far more alarming than the three-point numbers. And I said it against the San Antonio Spurs. Against physical teams, they're a finesse team that got better shooting threes. They were already great at that. Let me throw this out too. Keep your eye, Christine, on Klay Thompson's three-point percentage this year. I just want everybody to keep your eye on it. Now, it's way too early, but we'll examine this every couple of weeks. Klay Thompson used to shoot three-pointers when it was just he and Curry, and they were good three-pointers. But does anybody consider this a possibility? That with now Durant and Steph and Klay, that Klay will on occasion feel forced to take threes and not as good a three? Is that before it was different. He could shoot 7 a night and feel good about it. Now he's not getting the opportunity. His numbers could potentially plummet points per game average. Don't kid yourself. It matters. That stuff matters come contract time. Players are aware of it. Just keep your eye on Klay Thompson's three-point shooting percentage. I don't know for sure, but is it possible he feels a little pinched and will take worse or poorer three-point shots? Just throwing it out there. I'm saying it's right. I'm just saying it's something to think about. Coming up next, oh my, look who's at practice. Look who may be getting activated in the NFL, my dear friend Tony Romo. Very interesting things happening in Dallas. They get ready for the Steelers. Christine, you're giving me that strange look.
Activation doesn't mean starting.
Hi, it's the Herd. Getting your mailing and shipping done seems like a no-win situation. Going to the post office takes up valuable time, leasing a postage meter expensive, and with multi-year commitments and hidden fees. Luckily, we know a better way. All of us do here. Stamps.com. With Stamps.com, it's simple. You buy and print official U.S. postage, the real stuff, for any letter or package, right from your own desk. That easy. You use your own computer and your own printer. You even get special postage discounts you will not find at the post office. Plus, Stamps.com is more powerful than a postage meter. At just a fraction of the cost, you can save at least 50% compared to a postage meter. Why wouldn't you use Stamps.com? And you'll never go to the post office again. Right now, sign up. Stamps.com. Use my promo code HERD for a 4-week trial plus a $110 bonus offer, including postage and a digital scale. It's amazing how good this offer is. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com before you do anything else. Click on the mic, top of the home page, and type in HERD. That's Stamps.com, enter HERD. Going to the post office? Never again.
Guys, if you're wondering whether your shirt's too long to wear untucked, probably is. Untuckit.com has solved the problem. Go to untuckit.com, use the code SPORTS for 15% off. Stores in New York, Chicago, L.A. on Melrose Avenue is a new one. So I'm watching the game last night. I thought it was a very, very entertaining game. Very, very entertaining game. I thought the Sunday night game, Raiders-Denver, was a very, very entertaining game. You know, one of the things I think I owe you, the listeners, or the viewers here on FS1, is the straight, skinny, the truth. Don't bring in agendas. Every day is a new day and a new topic. You always talk about Brady. He's the best quarterback of all time. It would be ridiculous not to talk about him all the time. You always talk about LeBron, best basketball player in a decade. It would be asinine to do this for a living and not talk about him all the time. But one of the things I have seen now, and this is the classic media overreaction, they come into weeks with agendas, is the NFL now is no good and nobody's watching it, and the league is terrible, and it's falling apart, and wrong. The ratings are triple virtually every other league to quadruple. The Super Bowl will double the Cubs World Series. So this morning, and I heard this all the first 4 months, first 4 weeks of the season. College football is way better. College football is amazing. College football every week, go look at the top 10 teams. 8 of their games are absolute blowouts done by the middle of the second quarter. Alabama hasn't lost in the SEC in 20 games. Is that what you really want? Michigan wins by 50. Washington wins by 40. Clemson wins by 30. Louisville scores 7 touchdowns from one player. Is that what you want? Here's a prime example of a lot of people in the media coming in with an agenda and just not doing actual homework. There's 32 NFL teams. We're halfway through the season now. Okay, we're halfway through the season. 32 NFL teams. 2 teams dead. Not even on life support. Dead. Cleveland, 0-9. San Francisco, 1-7. Dead. 2 other teams need to win this weekend. Jacksonville and Chicago. But 28 of 32 teams, halfway through, still in the mix. And in fact, there are entire divisions. The AFC West, Oakland, Kansas City, Denver, San Diego. They all look like playoff teams based on the weekend. The NFC East, Dallas, New York, Washington, Philadelphia. They all feel like they still have a shot to make the playoffs. Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa, Carolina. I think Carolina's the best team in that division. Even better than Atlanta, and I think they'll prove it by the end of the year. I really do. 28 of the 32 teams, halfway through the season, still viable. Let's add some context to this. Let's go halfway through last year's NBA season. Philadelphia was 5-38. The Lakers were 9-34. Brooklyn was 11-31. New Orleans was 14-27. Phoenix was 13-30. The T-Wolves were 13-30. And Sacramento stunk. 7 teams, even before the halfway mark, the third mark of the season, done. And about 4 others close to that. Let's go to Major League Baseball. Let's go to their All-Star break this year. 11 of the 30 teams in baseball this year, a great baseball season, 11 of the 30, All-Star break, out of it. Out of it. Let's go to college football right now. You basically have 5 teams with a chance to win the national championship. That's it. Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, Ohio State, Washington. Outside shot to Louisville. Maybe 6. There's 120 teams. 6? That's it. So we're 10 games into the current NBA season. We're 10 games. The Sixers are already 0-6. The Wizards are awful 1-5. New Orleans 1-7. Mavs 1-5. Phoenix 2-5. 9 teams have won a third or fewer of their games. We're 10 games into the season. We're not even a quarter. We're not even a fifth. We're not even a 7th. We're like an 8th, a 9th into the season. And like 7 teams, you're like, oh, they're done. They're done. So add some context to it. Virtually every weekend in the NFL, the last 2 weekends, 8 of the games in both weekends, not combined, were one-possession football games. And even the games this weekend, Denver-Oakland, was wildly entertaining. That was a fun game to watch. It's the biggest game for the Raiders in a decade. It was fun to watch, like the Raiders or not. That game last night, yeah, was the officiating at the end of the first half a mess? That was a really entertaining football game last night. That was a wildly entertaining television product. So let's add some context instead of just, it's a bad league. I don't like the way it's officiated. For the record, the ratings are 15% off record highs, and they'll bounce back if one of the candidates wins tonight. Give it about 2 weeks, and if one of the candidates wins and one of the polarizing candidates, I think you know who I'm talking about, disappears and the media stops covering every day, most of those ratings will bounce back. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Speaking of politics, I think Jerry Jones is doing a very good job of being political regarding Tony Romo. Here's his latest on how they'll handle the QB situation.
We probably are never going to have this totally sorted out. We're going to play it by ear. We can do that. And to do it really right for the advantage of the team, which we deserve, he's really got to be ready to go at the top of his game.
What does this mean to you, play it by ear?
It means that if Romo, let me just ask you this.
Okay.
If you're the Cowboys and your road to the Super Bowl is Atlanta, where you may have to score 35 points, Pete Carroll defense and Bill Belichick, who is 15-5 against rookie quarterbacks. If I said to you, with this offensive line, this running back, the improved defense, who's going to beat Pete Carroll, Belichick in Atlanta? Dak or Tony Romo?
What's Dak's record by the time he gets to that point? Still only one loss?
I'm not sure. I'm not going to project.
If it's just one loss, I'm sticking with Dak.
Okay.
Dak loses, I'll entertain your idea of putting Tony Romo in.
I like to be entertained.
Good. NFL Vice President of Officiating Dean Blandino sent out a tweet last night about the Richard Sherman play on the kicker, and it came just a few minutes into the third quarter. He said, at the end of the half in the Buffalo against Seattle game, it's unnecessary roughness for hitting the kicker. Foul means he can stay in the game. My first reaction to this was, why is he tweeting? Doesn't that seem like something that should be kind of talked about with his colleagues?
No, I actually, if you're the head of officials, I think in today's social media world, I think it's really smart.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like, listen, you can let everybody else form the opinion.
Okay.
Or you can go, hey, our guys made a mistake. I think you have to be more proactive today because these kind of like social media tsunamis overwhelm you. And I think the NFL is kind of aware of the optics right now, but they're getting beat up by the press. So if Dean Blandino goes out there and said, we butchered it, let me add some clarity to this, I'm okay with it.
So
I really am.
Cut it off right there.
Yeah, just give yourself, cut some of the momentum off.
But when we were talking at the end of the NBA season last year, when the refs were saying that they're missing a lot of calls, you felt like they shouldn't be calling out their colleagues publicly. It should be kind of kept in-house. So why is it different?
Say it again, what I did this.
Yeah, when we were talking about the NBA last year, remember they were releasing statements
Yeah,
that they were
what I
missing
didn't
a lot
like
of calls.
about that, I don't want the commissioner, when you didn't have to release that. Like, there wasn't this belief, this narrative that the NBA was butchering calls.
Okay.
Like, don't go back in situations. I think in this situation for the NFL, especially with Seattle games on Monday night,
there's so much criticism.
There's so much criticism. Just add some clarity. But in the NBA, they would release statements, and nobody was seeking clarity. I didn't wake up in the morning going, I want an explanation from the NBA. Like this morning, when I'm watching that play, and last night I'm like, I need an explanation. What the hell's going on in that play? And the NFL offers some clarity.
Makes sense. I'm surprised that we disagree on that. I thought you were going to be with me on keeping it in-house, not tweeting things like that.
I was okay last night with it.
Okay. And finally, we talked about this yesterday, that I was kind of concerned about Klay Thompson out of all the Warriors with the addition of Kevin Durant. It seems like his shot's the one that's struggling the most and having the most chemistry issues. His three-point shooting is down to 19.6%, but he says that he is not blaming the slump on Kevin Durant.
Not at all. I struggled last year for the first 20 games and Kevin wasn't here. And then, so it's nothing, it has nothing to do with Kevin.
Interesting.
So, I mean, yeah, I feel like back last year when I struggled, then I went on a tear. So it's just like any other season.
That's interesting.
I mean, obviously, we have different players, but I'm still getting the shots I always got before this year, so it's not on Kevin at all.
It's interesting.
I think there's a possibility to that. I think that Kevin Durant obviously plays a factor in it. Maybe it just takes Klay a little while to get hot.
Okay.
Needs a little more game
I
time.
would keep your eye on that 3-point percentage, John Goulet from the Bay Area.
Maybe he knows that he's going to get less shots.
That's
so
what
he's
I'm
putting
thinking.
pressure on
That's
himself.
what I'm thinking. Is that
he's the kind of shooter though where he could go 6 of 7 next game and be out of it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't see that happening, but go ahead with your theories.
No, it's just he has hot streaks and cold streaks.
I think I make
and when he's cold, he's cold.
All right. Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Former Jets head coach, former Browns head coach, Eric Mangini. I have a theory. I would like to give you my theory. I think it's quite genius. Have you voted yet, by the way, there?
I did. I voted early in Ohio, so.
Oh, you've already voted in Ohio?
It's an important state.
Are you asking all people who sit on the couch today
Certainly.
if they voted?
Have you voted?
It's a personal question.
Oh, yeah. I vote for harmony in America.
You strike me as a vote for harmony.
Yeah. Actually, Ohio's already decided, kind of, isn't it? That's kind of a.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Oh, I think so.
Really?
Yeah. California has been decided 13 years ago.
You've got some polling data that somebody else does?
Me and Nate Silver.
We should really go live to you throughout the day.
So I was telling you this before the show, is that I've watched Pete coach for a long time, and Pete's different. He's a different personality.
Yep.
And he's a little surfer guy, a little crazy. And for a long time, the knock on Pete was a little casual, not buttoned up, a little out there, a little spacey. Could I not argue when I watch Seattle for the third time just on Monday Night Football, he creates this culture that is so hyper-aggressive, they're hard to officiate.
I heard you talking about that. Look, when you take into account the numbers since Pete's gotten there, they've been one of the highest penalized teams year in and year out.
Yeah.
So it's not like the penalties are going unnoticed. It's only the Raiders that have more penalties over the time span since Pete's been there. And I don't think it's a competitive advantage. You look at, what was it, last week, Richard Sherman was complaining that they were penalized to keep the games close. I think every team feels like
they're getting jobbed.
Yeah, they're getting jobbed and someone else has an advantage. But when you purely look at the numbers, Pete's teams have been highly penalized. So the officials are noticing it. Is it the exact number it should be? I don't know. You could make a case for that either way. But I don't think owners across the league would let Seattle get some sort of competitive advantage that they didn't get.
No, I don't think it's a competitive advantage. I don't. In fact, the most penalties since 2010, you're right, the Raiders number one, the Seahawks too. What I'm saying is Seattle, like the Raiders, that's mostly because they were poorly run.
Well,
like
that was their brand for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't
But
beat them in that
Seattle's
area.
well coached, chess match, smartly run. But they do have, I mean, when I say Kansas City, I think, like New England, I say efficient. And I think Dallas, I say O-line. When I say Seattle, I think aggressive. That's just kind of what they do.
And that's what Pete preaches. But how do you think that then translates into
I think what I saw
some sort of...
Well, no. What I saw last night for the third time, just on Monday night, and I saw it against Atlanta. I said it earlier. When you have an aggressive kid, you just naturally let him get away with more because you don't want to yell at him all the time. The aggressive kid gets away more. The aggressive kid in class. The teacher doesn't want to disrupt class the whole day. Seattle is so aggressive that especially at home, it's loud. They get rolling. Refs don't want to be throwing the flag. Like last night, the Seattle Seahawks discombobulated the entire officiating crew.
But what do you hear week in and week out? That the officials are playing too big a part in the games across the league. So I don't think the universal opinion is that the refs are staying out of it. If anything, I think most people feel that the refs are too involved in games. So I don't know if I see the same thing you're
mostly
seeing.
disagree with me. That's okay. So Jeff Fisher, Jeff Fisher is not playing Jared Goff. And I tend to like coaches who have a plan and stick to it. Don't be pressured by the noise.
Yep.
But could I make the argument that since Jeff Fisher, last 15 years, they obviously scheme the defense well, they draft the defense well, they coach the defense well. Could I make the argument they don't scheme the offense well, they don't draft it particularly well? I looked 15 years for Jeff Fisher. It is remarkable considering he's respected. They draft the defense so well. They have very few Pro Bowlers. Vince Young for an hour, Chris Johnson a couple of years. Todd Gurley now's struggling. They've drafted a myriad of offensive linemen. None are Pro Bowlers. None are even exceptional. Can I make an argument? Some teams simply know one side of the ball better. And Jeff Fisher in the offense, They don't get along necessarily.
I do think you can make an argument that coaches have certain strengths. And even in New England, I don't think they've drafted a wide receiver in the first round since Bill's been there. And since he's been a head coach, I think the only wide receiver he's ever drafted in the first round was Derek Alexander when it was the Browns, the kid from Michigan.
Right.
And that's not something that he wants to do.
He's very good with linebackers, by the way.
And very good with defensive linemen. You know, that's
very
a
few
strength.
misses, yeah.
But to say that Jeff has, over the course of time, hasn't had significant input from other people, that the GM hasn't made the final decision on some of those players, to me, Jeff is a guy who has a wealth of experience, and he's not going to just put each season in this compartment and not evaluate it. So if he felt like there was a weakness in that area, I'm sure he'd work to correct it. Now, the numbers aren't necessarily backing that up, but I don't think it's been purely him driving that train.
If Jared Goff, why isn't he playing him?
Well, look, Jeff feels like he has a good team, okay? And you saw that in Hard Knocks. And he's not ready to say, okay, the season's over. He's not at that point.
Well, it's not yet. I mean, they're in games. They're not getting smoked here.
They're in games. The division. It's not like Seattle has an insurmountable lead in the division, and nobody has more information than Jeff Fisher does. He drafted him. He sees him every day at practice. He sees him in meetings. He gets the feedback from coaches, and no one has a more vested interest in the quarterback decision than Jeff Fisher does. So the fact that he's making this decision means that he knows some things that we don't know. And the idea that things can't get worse, they can get worse. You can make a quarterback change, and it can get a lot worse. And if you make that change and he's not doing well at practice, he's not doing well in the meetings, or whatever reason he hasn't been playing, the rest of the team looks at you and says, okay, well, is this over? Are we giving up? So you want to make that decision.
You want to maintain the locker room.
You want to maintain the locker room, and you want to make the best decision you can, because he feels like he's in the mix. And look, where they are right now, they're not out of it by any stretch. A lot of things can happen.
Jets, Browns former head coach Eric Mangini, also worked closely with the Patriots for years. Okay, so I don't think, generally in the NFL, it's brutal. Like 8 coaches get fired. And this is going to be an anomaly. Chip Kelly's bad, he's not getting fired. Hugh Jackson's team's bad, he's not getting fired. And I think both guys are smart guys and will do well over time. I think Gus Bradley's in trouble in Jacksonville. But a lot of the guys that are in trouble right now, the Giants don't fire coaches. Ben McAdoo's not getting in trouble. The Steelers don't fire coaches. Mike Tomlin's safe. But I said this yesterday. I know Mike McCarthy can coach. But whatever's happening, there is a lack of communication between the often sort of disengaged Aaron and the smart and bottom line, maybe rigid Mike McCarthy, the conservative second half Mike McCarthy. Could I make the argument is, you can't fire Aaron Rodgers. You can't fire him. Mike McCarthy, if Rodgers and McCarthy are having an issue, you got to remove McCarthy. You're looking at me like I'm honestly.
I heard you talking about this, and first of all,
the whole idea like I'm Trump in California.
The whole idea of firing coaches, not firing coaches, and who's going to survive and who won't. Look, that'll change 10 times between now and the end of the season, and there'll be some surprises. But the whole idea of firing Mike McCarthy, it makes no sense.
Okay, give me some reasons.
I know you like to do your 4 reasons. I'll give you my 4 reasons.
Oh, you did homework today.
I did a little bit of homework.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
I wanted to do it in the spirit of the way that you present it. So
well, I like when my guests come on and give a little.
Yeah, well, I'm a giver. That's how I'm known. So the first thing, let's pull up the top 4 reasons that we should maintain Mike McCarthy. And the first one is he's had 1 losing season in 11 years.
Okay.
Does that have any value to you?
It's got some value, yeah. I'm impressed with that.
Well, take a look at what he's done. 1 losing season in 11 years.
Yeah, that's a pretty good argument. What's your second one?
Okay, the second one, okay.
Anybody can have one.
He's got the best winning percentage in the NFC since he's taken over, by far. And he's got the best winning percentage in his division, next to only what the Patriots have done in their division.
Okay. That's also a very solid argument. What's your third one?
Okay,
because the great baseball pitchers have a third pitch.
I've got 4. He's made 7 consecutive playoff appearances.
Well, he's got Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, but there's other teams that have had very good quarterbacks that haven't made it to the playoffs.
Okay.
Do you disagree with that?
No. I think, again, you did a little homework and you've shown you had a sneaky slider. I thought you were all a fastball.
I'd say the last thing is
what's the last
when
one?
you look at the number of turnovers they've had, they're second lowest in the NFL since he's been there, next to only the Patriots. To me, that's a sign of discipline. But when you look at it collectively, whether it's how many games he's won, the dominance he's had in the NFC, the dominance he's had in his division, the consecutive playoff appearances, and the fact that these teams are disciplined, don't turn the ball over. When you look at that body of work, what are they now? They're almost 500, or I'm not even, a little over 500. Mm-hmm. Like, we're going to make a decision on the guy's future based off this? It's crazy.
All right. Well, coaches support coaches. Whatever you got to do. That was a pretty.
That's I would think of a stronger response from you.
No, listen. Just because I offered it as a suggestion doesn't mean I would fire him. I'm simply saying, as a talk show host, in the NBA.
But even entertaining the idea.
Why can't I entertain idea? I entertain America all day. Why can't I entertain an idea?
Because that idea, it
catches fire.
It has no merit.
Okay, so you're saying it was just dumb.
I'm saying it has very little merit. It's a very, very, very little merit.
Okay, you said very. You didn't have to add like 3 of them. Well, you can just say very little.
I didn't want to say. I don't want to say dumb.
So you're just saying very 4 times.
Yeah.
Eric Mangini. It's the Herd. Hi, it's the Herd. Buying tickets online for sports and concerts has always been kind of a confusing process for a long, long time. Always been hard to find the best deal for that game or show you want to do. And none of those older ticket sites, they don't want to change that. But SeatGeek is different. They've come along and created an amazing app and website that makes it easier than ever for you and I to buy and sell tickets. SeatGeek is the place you should go and I go to look for tickets to a game or a concert. Everything about SeatGeek is designed to make life easier. They do all the price comparison for you by searching multiple ticket sites. And they want to help you get the most bang for your buck. That's why every ticket on SeatGeek is given a grade based on value. So you immediately see any underpriced seats and you find the best deals that fit your budget. Best of all, my listeners in the Herd get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. So to get your $20 rebate, download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab and click add a promo code, and then just enter Herd. SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first purchase. Download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code HERD today. Welcome back on a Tuesday. Chris Carter next hour. Peter Schrager, Nick Wright stops by. He's supporting his Cam Newton. Cam holds onto the ball a long time. Some of those Cam things, dude, let it rip. Let it go. That's my thing about Aaron Rodgers. Let it go. These guys get all paralyzed. Ooh, I'm going to throw an interception. Andrew Luck had 2 terrible interceptions at Lambeau, and they won the game going away. Let it rip. It's like doing a radio show. You prepare like hell, and then you just start talking. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. Christine Leahy's joining us. So we had a strong disagreement this morning on our staff. So tonight, nobody in America is going to watch. But tonight, I mean, nobody's going to watch. We're going to have the college football playoff rankings come out again. Like last Tuesday night was the first week, and people watched. And this Tuesday, tonight, is the second night, and it's the election. So 85 to 90 million people in America tonight are going to be watching the election. Like, nothing's happening right now. Nobody knows anything right now. But in about 9 hours from now, most of America, myself included, I'm gonna move toward the elections when I get home tonight. And so we were talking about this last week. I didn't have Washington in. I didn't have Washington undefeated in. And so Joel Klatt believed this, and John said it this morning. He thinks what this college football playoff does, they're just trying to create a television show. So give everybody your theory on why Washington's not in the top 4. It's basically to create mayhem and talk.
Because the rankings don't technically matter until the very end. And since there are more games to be played and you know things are going to change one way or the other, why not create kind of a controversy and try to get people to watch? I know tonight there's an election, but in other weeks people will watch because like, ooh, they might change it. They might keep this team out. Like they can do it. Like they could put Ohio State. Why not put Ohio State in tonight? They're going to play Michigan in a couple weeks, so it doesn't matter where they're ranked right now. But then everyone would be up in arms that Washington wasn't in because they're undefeated.
But so what you're saying, basically, I don't think this is true, and John feels strongly about this. That would be like saying none of the polling really matters in a presidential election until today. It doesn't really matter. You could be wrong for a year. But if you're wrong today and you've got, okay, this candidate's going to win, and you're wrong, then you have to own it. Then people are going to say, don't believe the Rasmussen poll. Don't believe the LA Times poll. They butchered it. But you wouldn't do that because you really don't have to get any poll number right except the last one. Nate Silver needs to get tonight right. His final poll has Clinton winning. Well, if Trump wins, it hurts Nate Silver's business. People say, can't listen to that guy. They don't know what he's doing. It hurts his business. But the reason that you want all your polls to be reflective of the truth and not a TV show is because of credibility. It would strain credibility. So to me, I think you and Joel Klatt strongly believe that the playoff committee is just sort of rigging this to make it more entertaining in a television show. And to that, I would argue all your credibility would be out the drain.
But things are going to change. Like, all these teams are going to play games. So if you were off, you could just say, well, Washington beat this team, and that was a really impressive win, so that changed our mind on them.
But when I go, do you go, Christine, to any of these political polls? For the last 6 months, I have.
Yes, but I don't believe any of them.
Oh, see, I do. I believe like 2 of them.
Okay.
And the reason I only believe in 2, Nate Silver and Real Clear Politics, is because I think, and then yesterday the Wall Street Journal has a poll. Mm-hmm. I've tended to I tend to buy the Wall Street Journal.
That it's unbiased.
Well, all states, it's telephone calls. I don't believe any of the local newspaper polls generally. I generally go to Nate Silver, I go to Real Clear Politics, or the Wall Street Journal final poll. They've all got about the same thing, Hillary winning. Marginal, close, but 3-4 points. Those are the ones. I don't listen to, there's a million polls out there. The LA Times poll, I don't even know their methodology. It's bizarre. It's got Trump in a landslide. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe they're the only poll in America that's right. But the point is, the reason I buy into 3 polls, regardless of who I want to win, I buy into the ones that I think are credible. And if college football makes this a TV show, why would I ever watch on Tuesdays anymore, knowing they're just cartoonish? They're just trying to pull me in. I mean, I'll give you an example. Last week, the playoff picture had Bama, Clemson, Michigan, Texas A&M. And the first 2 out were Washington and Ohio State. But I went and called pregame.com RJ Bell, and I said, what if Washington played these teams? Washington on the Vegas poll was number 7. So Vegas thought Washington was overrated. And by the way, even though Washington's looked great this year at home, they're only a 7-point favorite over USC. So the odds makers think Washington is overrated. I don't think those college football playoff guys are zany. I don't think they're TV producers. I think they think Washington's overrated. So last week, Vegas agreed with me. Now, my new poll, here's my poll right now, and I got nothing against Washington. I have them 5th. But my poll right now is Alabama 1, Michigan 2, Clemson 3, Ohio State 4, and I have Washington and Louisville just barely out. Just barely out. Louisville's got 1 close loss to Clemson, and Washington doesn't have any losses, but not enough impressive Saturday afternoons for me. So if tonight they come out with Ohio State, and I called pregame.com RJ Bell this morning, and Ohio State would be favored over Washington if they played. So I don't think that's zany. Ohio State neutral field would be favored over Washington. And that's where I have them. I think Washington's close, but my 4's Alabama, Michigan, Clemson, Buckeyes. It's the Herd. This is the Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Get out there and vote today, folks. Get out there and vote. Make your vote count. Speak America. Christine Leahy joining me as always. When did you realize, Christine, you wanted to be like a sportscaster or in the media?
17 years old.
17?
Maybe 16.
Okay. And you just decided, I'm going to be a sportscaster. And you probably decided at that time what kind of sportscaster you wanted to be.
No, that took a little longer.
Okay.
Honestly. No, I knew I wanted to do something in sports, and I knew I wanted to be a broadcaster at like 17. And then I think maybe a little after college is when I realized exactly what kind I wanted to be.
Okay. I decided I wanted to be a sportscaster. My mom says at about 7 years old. And I think I decided very, very early what kind of sportscaster I wanted to be. Howard Cosell was my favorite. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of irascible and difficult and opinionated. But I liked the fact, and I don't know the psychology behind it, but he got a lot of attention, and maybe I wasn't getting enough attention. Who the hell knows? But I liked his opinions. And what I didn't like, I've never liked sportscasters who are pom-pom wavers. I think a lot of local sportscasters are the pits. They have talent. It's not lack of talent, but they wave a pom-pom. And that's why I always give credit to a Mike Francesa in New York, who will rip New York teams. Dale Hansen in Dallas, who will rip the Dallas Cowboys. I love guys like that because it's easy to just go in and say, Cowboys going to win it all. It's tough to say, little overrated. So I've always, even as a kid, I liked people. I hated the local sportscaster. I was 9 years old. I could tell that guy's just saying things to be popular. I've never liked it. So I get a lot of pushback because I don't just put my arms around Oregon football or Washington football. I grew up loving Washington football, but I don't have them in my top 4 right now. I don't care if they're undefeated. Vegas doesn't care if they're undefeated. The truth serum is Vegas. Vegas would have Ohio State favored over Washington. So would I. Washington's winning a lot of these games because of not great NFL talent, because of a coaching advantage. Hell, they almost lost to awful Arizona. It's not that they have multitudes of great NFL players. They don't have a top 15 class in the last 5 years. Very few star players on this roster. It's great coaching staff, terrific young quarterback, and, they've played some bad teams. Ohio State, to me, is a better team. But I would never, I get this all the time, why won't you put Washington in there? You're from the Northwest. No. Never. I'm never going to give a team, because I think that's innate bias, and I hate it from sportscasters. It'd be very easy. When I used to talk to Kirk Herbstreit about this, Herbstreit was tougher on Ohio State than he was Michigan because he felt people thought he was a pro-Buckeye. And he goes, I played there. Of course, I like to see them be successful. But I've always been the same way, is if you can't trust my opinion, if you think I'm a pom-pom waving house guy, what credibility do I have? So I like Washington. I have them 5th. But I think if they played Ohio State's got 4 top 10 classes in the last 4 years. They've got unbelievable NFL bodies everywhere. Hell, they had 5 first-round picks last year. I will say this about Tony Romo. Tony Romo, they have cleared him to practice and may activate Tony Romo against the Steelers. So it is time once again for Uncle Colin to sprinkle the truth on the Cowboys. I know you love Dak Prescott, and he has been very impressive. But you do realize Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Blake Bortles have more touchdown passes. And Dak has 12 TD passes through 8 games. Matt Ryan's got double that. Derek Carr, 17. Before Dak Prescott is elected into the Ring of Honor, Chef Colin sprinkling the truth on this. Tony Romo's last year, he was healthy. He played 15 games, had 34 touchdowns. Tom Brady has as many as Dak, and he's missed a month. Heading into Cleveland, Dak had 9 TD passes in 7 games. I'm just sprinkling the truth on this situation. Dallas is about this offensive line first and foremost. And they've only allowed defensively 23 points twice. Tony Romo would be unbeaten with this team. He wouldn't even have a loss. If your goal is to win the Super Bowl, Belichick is 15-5 against rookie quarterbacks. If your goal is to win the Super Bowl, Atlanta, you may have to score 30 to beat them. Seattle, Pete Carroll. So, again, I'm just sprinkling a little truth on the Dak Prescott story. The last time he was a starter, Tony Romo was 12-4, and Dallas averaged almost 30 a game. Now, I understand Peter King was on the show yesterday. I totally understand not wanting to screw up momentum.
I'm not sure that they have spoken about that, but if Tony sat in the room with Jerry Jerry would spend 59 minutes telling him that he loves him, he's going to love him till the end of time, that he's always going to be his guy. And then the last minute, he's going to say, are you crazy? I can't take a quarterback out of the lineup that's won 7 games in a row.
Let's go via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network to New York City. New York City and Pete Schrager. So you spent time with Dak last Sunday. You were in Cleveland. I was so excited because I was on the pregame show, and you were in Cleveland. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So take some time on this. What is the vibe in that Cowboy locker room now? Romo, Dak, what's it look like?
Well, I was curious, Colin. And Saturday we had a production meeting, so it means we get to actually sit with Prescott. We get to sit with some of the other veterans. We sit with the coaches. Sean Lee made a great point. He said, training camp comes along, and Tony Romo is doing what he does. Then Kellen Moore, the backup, comes in. And then the third-string kid, a fourth-round rookie, comes in. And we're thinking, now we can get our interceptions. He's going to be a rookie. He's not going to be able to do anything. And he said Dak Prescott lit them up in practice every single day, the first-team defense. And they looked around. They're like, who is this guy? So they knew in training camp that this guy was different. He was something special. But the Romo thing is fascinating because out comes Dak and everyone's going wild. First of all of Cleveland was Cowboy fans. They all made the trip.
I know.
They're going nuts. And then in comes Romo, hooded sweatshirt, kind of like almost like a presidential candidate or like a pageant winner waving to the crowd. And he's in the background. And pregame, it's Lucky Whitehead and Ezekiel Elliott and Cole Beasley and Dez Bryant, all these young guys in the end zone. I'm not going to do it, but they're dancing, and Dak Prescott's dancing with them. And it just feels like this Cowboys team has kind of turned the page. And Romo, to a man, he's never going to say anything that's wrong. But you got to think in his heart of hearts, he's wondering, like you said, Colin, if I'm in here, do we beat the Giants week 1, 35-10 and just roll? Because this offensive line is playing so well.
Yeah.
The receivers are all playing so well. And I've got this horse behind me, Ezekiel Elliott. But my counter to that is, and I think Jerry's counter to that and Jason Garrett's counter to that is, you can't live in hypotheticals. And right now, in the present, they're 7-1. They've won 7 straight games with this kid. And if the Cubs were a boon for Fox Sports, you better believe the 7-1 Cowboys are coming. And this is good for football, and Dak Prescott's good for America's team. They've got the Steelers in Pittsburgh, 4:30 game on the East Coast. Troy and Joe Buck and Aaron Andrews. This is going to be a ratings monster post-election. I don't want to hear anything about the ratings until we see how this one nets out.
All right, crazy Monday Night Football game last night. Once again in Seattle. Once again, the Fail Mary, the batted ball against the Lions. We saw it against Atlanta earlier this year. Seattle is a hyper-aggressive football culture under Pete Carroll. I think they're harder than average to officiate. They're loose and they're aggressive. What did you make of the calls? This field goal attempt call last night?
Well, the end of the half, they did botch it. And if you're a Bills fan waking up this morning, you're upset. But they didn't botch necessarily the roughing the kicker thing. That was subjective, and they called it an offsides. So if Sherman's offsides and he blocks the kick and at least he touches the ball, you got to get rid of it. It can't be a roughing the kicker. So that one's subjective. It's the end of the game one where Tyrod Taylor is out of the pocket and Sherman levels the receiver.
Yes.
And you could say, well, wait a second, he's out of the pocket. It's a legal play. Yes. But you could still call an unsportsmanlike conduct. You could still call unnecessary roughness.
Here it is right here.
That is what they could do. Yeah, so what you could say is, sure, letter of the law. But Colin, if they're preaching player safety all offseason and we're worried about the player's health, this one could be called for unnecessary roughness because Sherman didn't necessarily have to lay out the guy. And with the one at the end of the half, the ref stood over the ball and the clock ticked on the play clock and they called it almost a delay of game. That's where they messed up. But my big takeaway in all this, Colin, and I kind of hit it last week with you, this was an awesome game. I mean, Tyrod Taylor, kind of his coming-of-age moment. Russell Wilson looked great. Jimmy Graham was awesome. And what are we talking about today? Again, we're talking about Walt Anderson and the officiating. And no one wants to do that. But there's so many questions here. Should these guys be full-time employees? Yes, they absolutely should. No more of this. I'm a teacher during the week and I'm a ref. And the second one, and this is something that Belichick has mentioned at the owners' meetings time and time again, and it's been voted down. Should these coaches be able to have any play reviewable? They should have challenge flags for any play. Forget just the ones that are made reviewable. If they want to review any play at all, why not do it? Because Belichick's point all along has been the refs, they're doing it in real time. And the viewers at home are able to see 7 different angles and replays. And then on Monday morning, they're allowed to do it from 12 different angles and dissect this. Why shouldn't every single play be reviewable and the coaches be able to throw a flag on anything? Subjective, whether it be pass interference, whether it be holding calls, let us be the ones to decide what we want to use our challenges on. He's been voted down years in a row in the owners' meetings by the competition committee. Let's see what happens this year, because there's a big push for that, saying, you know what, let's take it out of these refs' hands. Let's put it in the coaches' hands. Let's make everything reviewable. The scary thing, Colin, some of these plays that are reviewable that go to New York, they're still getting them wrong. And if that's the case, I don't know what to tell you.
All right, Jets are a mess. And now Muhammad Wilkerson and Sheldon Richardson, late to practice. We hear stories they're missing meetings. Okay, I thought Todd Bowles, good coach, but you can't win with bad quarterback play. Is Todd Bowles in trouble here? What's going on with the Jets?
Well, look, I mean, they benched these guys the first quarter, and Mo Wilkerson had his birthday, and they had a cake for him on Saturday morning, and he missed the meeting where they were revealing the cake because he came late to practice, so they had to dock him the first quarter of the game. And for me, this is a big statement for Todd Bowles. What are you going to do? Because this team is a team in transition. They're a very young team with a lot of old veterans who aren't playing up to their ability. Whether it be Revis, Fitzpatrick, or even Wilkerson, who they rewarded with a $100 million contract. Now you've got to be the leader. You've got to step up. Very interesting back half to the season to the Jets, because if this thing gets out of hand and these guys are completely running rampant, that's trouble. I like the fact that Bowles benched these guys for the first quarter. I thought it was a statement by Todd Bowles saying, no, you might think the season's gone, but we've got a lot of young guys in this locker room, and we've got to make every veteran accountable. But when they're presenting you with a cake and you don't show up, that's a bad look. And I think most Jet fans will tell you, Cake Gate is just beginning, because you've got 8 weeks left of the season. And although you might not be going to the playoffs, everyone's got to be made accountable.
You got the Rams this week. Jared Goff, they're screaming for it in the Coliseum. Chris Carter said yesterday, Rams butchered this. He's not very good. Guys who are good play. He's not playing. You buy that?
Colin, if he was out playing Case Keenum every day in practice, you can make the argument you got to play him. Obviously, the Rams coaches know something we don't, and the players would be cowing about it also. They haven't said a word. I'll just make this point. I've met with Jeff Fisher 3 times already this season. I've done a lot of Rams games. His point all along has been this. Carson Wentz isn't in the lineup in Philly if Bridgewater doesn't go down and they trade Bradford for a first, okay? Brissett doesn't hit the field in New England if Brady's not suspended, and obviously Garoppolo doesn't get hurt. And we don't see Dak Prescott if Tony Romo and Kellen Moore get hurt. Even in Cleveland, if Robert Griffin and Josh McCown aren't injured, we don't see Cody Kessler. So his point is, we have a plan. We have to stick to it. We wouldn't be true to ourselves if we threw that plan away because of outside pressure. I would counter and say, you can lose 13-10 with Jared Goff. You might as well see what you got. But Jeff Fisher is a man of principle and a man of process. Seems like he's sticking with Case Keenum for now.
Pete Schrager, good talking to you again, bud.
Love talking to you, Colin. Great stuff as always.
Via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network, Peter Schrager. I love the sound of that. We are apolitical on this show. You just go vote today. I'm going to be apolitical all day. But I will say that I disagree strongly with John that the college football playoff tonight isn't a rigged system, and I don't believe we have a rigged election. I believe the committee truly believes in their votes tonight, and I think they're going to have Bama 1 and Michigan 2 and Clemson 3 and Ohio State 4. That is mine. That is what Vegas has, and I think the committee will have that. Do not bow down to pressure because Washington's undefeated. John, of course, feels this is the Kardashian show. Everybody's a puppeteer. They're doing it for the ratings. They're trying to get people upset. Vegas thinks Ohio State is better than Washington if they played in a neutral field by 2.5 points. That's what Vegas feels. Joel Klatt, he wants to call it the college football playoff ranking comedy show.
Listen, and I like Kirby a lot. I think he's done a nice job at Texas Tech. But whoever is in that position, last year it was Jeff Long. This year it's Kirby Hocutt. They're just out there, and they're puppeteers. They're just like, hey, don't look over where you should look. Look over here to my left hand. They're magicians. That's all they're doing. Listen, the bottom line is this. They rewarded Texas A&M for beating Tennessee that should be 3-5. They won on a Hail Mary against Georgia, and they fumbled into the end zone against App State and won that football game. By the way, Tennessee gained 680 yards against A&M. So you're saying a very average Tennessee team, which outgained A&M, had more first downs than A&M, took them to double overtime with 7 turnovers, and you're going to give A&M credit for that? How about give Washington credit for winning on the road against Utah, who's the best Pac-12 team over the last 24 games?
All right, so I disagree with almost appear to be loony, medicated guess. John, you and Klatt, you're really falling into the this election is rigged group.
It's not like I'm saying they're going to put Purdue in there and screw with everybody. I just think they flip-flop a couple teams to get you to watch.
All right. It's the Herd. Trying to make up another weekend spent in your football lair? Why don't you surprise her with 1-800-Flowers.com bouquets? Right now, 36 stunning autumn roses for just $36. Yeah, go to 1-800-Flowers.com. Click on the radio mic, enter Herd. Offer ends Friday. So, I have said this often. One of the great things about LeBron James is not just that he's a remarkable basketball player, but he goes into unsettled situations and creates harmony. Kyrie Irving's not the easiest guy to play with. Chris Bosh had to massively change his game. D. Wade had to give the keys to the city, his city, to LeBron. LeBron creates harmony. He's the great eraser. All your flaws go away. This morning's a classic example that the Eastern Conference has become, outside of the Cavs, a mess. So I get this story this morning, and my staff didn't even mean to do this. They give me a story on the Knicks. Sources, Phil Jackson unhappy due to the Knicks' limited use of the triangle offense. Players and coaches at odds. Knicks in the East a mess. Paul George of the Pacers, critical of, quote, lifeless Pacers after loss. We're out of whack. There's no trust. There's no chemistry. Indiana's now a mess. Isaiah Thomas admits the Celtics are not as good as expected. We're just not that good. We don't play with a sense of urgency. We're not a very good team. John Wall, real leader there. Another case of poor judgment last night, thrown out of a game, bumps a ref, some vulgarity tossed at him. The Wizards are an absolute disaster. They're getting worse every year. And yet the Cavs are 6-0. And it's not a team that should be easy to throw together. J.R. Smith, crazy. Iman Shumpert's in a Kanye video. One of the players dating a Kardashian. Kevin Love was a dominant 25-point-a-game guy to another team. Kyrie Irving sometimes is one of those ball-centric guards I always complain about. You replace LeBron with Melo on this Cavs roster, it's not that you lose a great player. You lose a grown-up. LeBron's ability to create harmony. If you look at Cleveland, this team should be hard to get along. Kyrie Irving has struggled with teammates. Kevin Love was a dominant player at another place. Now he's half the player statistically. J.R. Smith's a goofball. You got a Kardashian dating the player. The Knicks could never figure out what to do with Iman Shumpert. And LeBron, 6-0, playing great, not easy in this Miami situation. D. Wade owned the city. LeBron walks in, they're best friends. Chris Bosh gave his career up to become like a two guard, a 6'11" 2 who shot jumpers. This is the advantage. LeBron flattens out the bumps. The egos are set aside. The machine gets well oiled and starts rolling. This morning, Paul George complaining about the Pacers. Isaiah Thomas acknowledging the Celtics aren't playing well. The Knicks are a mess already. John Wall's team's getting worse by the season. And here are the Cavs, 6-0 and rolling, getting along despite a Kardashian, actually two Kardashian connections. Kanye's video and a Kardashian dating a player.
He played a very minor role in that video. It was his wife that was the star.
I'm telling you, man.
He was supporting his wife.
Isn't LeBron amazing?
Wait, what players was Kyrie not getting along with? Where are you getting that from?
Kyrie can be tough.
No.
Oh, very tough.
No,
Yes.
Kyrie's actually a very, very smart, very mature player.
Oh, I didn't say smart.
And mature. He is very mature.
Smart, mature people are hard to get along with. You're very hard to get along with. You're smart, mature.
That's absolutely not
John,
true.
is she hard to get along with?
No.
Very.
Absolutely.
No question.
You don't even believe that,
No,
Goulet.
no, totally agree.
I'm not even buying into that because I am very easy to get along with.
Right. Yeah, that's what
You
hard to
should
get
see-
along with people
you see
say
your
to
dressing
themselves.
room in the morning and you see mine. People are hanging out. It's a party in mine.
Okay, so last night, that Seahawks game, this morning I tried to explain it, and it was such a mess that we literally edited it down to a 1:05 piece of video. Now, let me say this. I don't like people who say elections are rigged if they lose, either side, and I don't like coaches who blame refs. Okay, let me just say this to you, Buffalo. You had a 40-play advantage and you lost. You had 82 plays, Seattle had 42, and you trailed by 6 late. You had 30 first downs, Seattle had fewer than 20. You had the football 40 minutes, over 2 times as long as Seattle did. I don't want you to blame the end of the half. So here's what happened at the end of the half, and then I'll let you hear what Rex Ryan said about it. Roll the tape.
Oh, boy, are they offside. Whoa. They went through and attempted the kick, and now Carpenter down grabbing his knee.
Prior to the snap, offside, number 25, defense, unabated to the kicker. It's a 5-yard penalty. Trainers came onto the field to attend to kicker number 2. Number 2 will have to leave the game.
My goodness. Which means they can't try the field goal.
How can they not make this call? We've had plenty of time to look at it. The kicker got roughed. He got hurt. That's the right call to make.
Well, here's what Rex Ryan is saying now. Spike the ball fast. That will count as Carpenter being off for a play, and then they'll try the field goal. So now here's Carpenter to bring an end to a wild first half. And fittingly, it is good.
Prior to the snap, delay of game.
Oh, my goodness.
Offense, 5-yard penalty. Be 1 second on the clock.
This is unbelievable.
The official didn't back away from the football till there was 5 seconds left on the play clock. Now it's a 54-yard try. And a knuckle ball that is no good. Rex Ryan looked like he couldn't decide whether he wanted to give the official an earful on the way off or just walk off. He decided restraint was the better way to go.
Give Sean McDonough credit. That was a wildly confusing 7 minutes of live American television. I thought Sean McDonough and John Gruden did a great job with it. I thought it was an incredibly entertaining game. But here's what Rex Ryan said after the frustrating loss.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
What was the explanation you were given by officials?
It doesn't matter. It was wrong. I mean, it's clear what happened. The guy roughed our kicker. Jumps outside, roughs our kicker, and then because we had to go out and attend to him, and it wasn't called roughing the kicker, then we had to spike the ball so we can come back in and kick. And then, of course, they got to put the K ball out there, and they don't reset the clock. So, from an officiating standpoint, I think you can do a little better than that.
They can. They butchered it. But again, you got to make your own luck sometimes. You had a 40-play advantage, and you trailed by 6. You had the football twice as long, and you trailed by 6. You got to make your own luck. I mean, at some point, it was a bad call, but, this is kind of my Rex thing. You can't dominate a game like that. Buffalo dominated large chunks of that game, and they trailed by a touchdown late. Can't sit around and wait for refs to perfectly officiate games. They don't. It's clear. Here was Richard Sherman, by the way, explaining his part of the play.
I tried to block the kick. I went for the ball. The holder still had it, so I didn't hear no whistle. They say play to the blow of the whistle, so I went and tried to block the kick. And I got it. I think I got a piece of it, and then the kicker somehow kept going. I assumed he was going to stop when he saw me going for the ball, but he didn't.
So Sherman was offsides and knew he was offsides, but he didn't want to give Buffalo a free kick. So Sherman was, oh, crap, I'm offsides. Well, I'm going to go now block it. So you don't get a free kick and it's made and it would count. So Richard Sherman's play, once he was offside, Richard's like, well, I'm going to go block it now. I'm not going to give you. You know how sometimes you're offside, it's a free play for the offense and the defense goes lax and you have a big play? So Richard Sherman's like, hey, once I'm offside, I'm going for the block. And once he went for the block, he got a piece of the ball. And the feeling is if you get a piece of the ball, it's not a penalty. It's just an offsides. It was confusing, I admit. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Dwayne Wade knows about the role of playing a villain. He helped with LeBron in Miami when they formed the first super team. So now he's giving some advice to Kevin Durant and the Warriors, which is interesting. He said, quote, one thing we did wrong our first year was we played into the villain role because people were not liking that we were together and we tried to play into that role. That's not why we started playing basketball. We started playing basketball because we enjoyed it and we loved it. When you play that way, you win that way. Enjoy your decision and just enjoy playing basketball.
Right.
Whatever they did was working. But I agree. I don't think you have to play into the villain role. I think that's more of something that the media creates.
Well, I mean, nobody wants to be the villain. I mean, that's this idea I've heard Donald Trump doesn't go into his office and like what people say about him.
I think some people like being a villain.
I think it wears you out. Do you really want to be a villain in life?
You and I don't, but I do think that there are some people who enjoy it.
Really?
Yeah. Twisted. But I think there are
long
people like that.
term,
I don't think Kevin Durant's one of them.
No.
Absolutely not.
No, that's not his.
But he makes a good point. He's like, why should you have to come to this villain role when really you started playing basketball because you love it? Of
course.
And he made the right decision because he loves basketball. Steph Curry had a slow night against the Lakers. We talked about this. He broke his 157-game streak of hitting at least one three-pointer. Last night, bounced back 13 for 17 from three, had a season-high 46 points. What this says to me is we should not read at all into that Laker loss. At all.
What it says to me is this team is up and down depending on who they play.
No, because what you're missing, and this is what I said to you yesterday, is the Warriors were coming off the game against OKC. Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant's first reunion since KD left. It's a very emotional game. They're tired. They're still figuring out their chemistry. The fact they lost to the Lakers is not a big deal.
I'll tell you what it tells me. Lakers are going to be in the NBA Finals. Might as well buy your tickets right now.
You're right. Therefore, I'm not believing anything you say for the rest of the show.
I'm like one of those polls.
Right? It's like you go to it and you know it's a little twisted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Christine with the news. Oh, you done? Not yet?
I
Go
did
ahead.
2 stories.
All right, I'm sorry.
Are you that done with me?
No, I'm not. I'm just, I lost
Jeez.
count. It's the National Voting Day. I'm a little off.
Do you have something to get to?
No, I'm just reading all these crazy polls. So go ahead.
What do the polls say?
Oh,
that you
boy.
should listen to
I
me
mean,
more?
Nutty things are happening in America.
Greg Popovich was asked about his relationship with Tim Duncan and how much he misses him, and his answer is very cute.
We're like in love. We text all the time. Huh? Only the ones where you blow kisses and things like that. You guys, you make me say these things, you know.
I like seeing the softer side of Greg Popovich. You like emojis too. And finally, Ezekiel Elliott has the NFL's best-selling jersey right now from April 1st to October 31st. Guess who has the second highest jersey?
Dak Prescott.
No! He has the 5th highest selling jersey, but guess the second one. I think you'll be surprised, and it's a tie. I'll give you a hint. It's a tie.
Ezekiel Elliott's number 1. That's interesting. I know it's not Andy Dalton. Let me think.
Nope.
Brady?
Yep, he's one of them.
Wow, still.
Mm-hmm.
Brady's the gift that keeps on giving.
He does.
So he's number 2.
Yep. But he's tied with someone for number 2.
Cam?
Nope.
Aaron Rodgers?
Mm-mm.
Who?
Carson Wentz.
Really?
Carson Wentz, yeah. And 4th, Odell Beckham Jr.
Good boy.
What does that say about the league?
Well, I mean, the flashy guys sell jerseys.
Tom Brady's not flashy.
Well, he's great. Greater flashy guys.
Yeah, he's great and getting greater by the day.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
All right, we do it every week on Tuesday. I take it seriously to the point of being kind of a nerd. It's the Herd Hierarchy NFL Power Ranking Top 10. You know, as I say, the top 4 teams, I believe, are the only ones that I think can win the Super Bowl. But here are the top 10 teams, in my opinion, in the NFL right now.
Herd hierarchy.
Time is now. Let's go.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin. Number 10.
Okay, you're going to think I'm crazy, but just look at the data on the Minnesota Vikings. They're going through a rough spot, but they have the fewest giveaways in the league and the fewest big plays allowed this year. Okay, this is still a really good defense. They've allowed the lowest opponent passer rating in blitz situations. They're in a rough spot. I stayed away from them this week in my Blazing 5. But there are stats that tell you when they get their offensive line settled, they're still an elite team. Number 10.
Number 9.
Listen, Denver's going to struggle playing from behind. But they also play in a really good division. You could put this team in other divisions, and they could be vying for first place. They are still number 1 in opponent yards per play. Okay, what does that mean? They're the toughest team in the league to get yards on. That is a top 10 team in the NFL.
Number 8.
Washington's the league's most underrated team. You know, I'm starting to watch Kirk Cousins, and listen, only 9% of their drives this year have resulted in 3 and out. That's better than New England. That's the best in the league. Yards per play, they're second. This offense under Kirk Cousins back-to-back years is really, really productive. They feel like a borderline playoff team to me. Redskins 8.
Number 7.
Kansas City's dull, and they're not explosive, but they're winning. They've won 17 of their last 20 games, and their losses, 2 of them were at New England and at Pittsburgh. They continue to win despite all sorts of injury problems. Macklin, Ware, Charles, Alex Smith, all hurt. Kansas City, number 7.
Number 6.
Atlanta is the over-the-top team. You play Atlanta, you're going to be in for a shootout. Okay, Matt Ryan leads the NFL. Passing yards, touchdowns. They're number 1 in yards per play. Kind of the opposite of Denver. They're really the opposite of Denver, but they're fun to watch. And listen, they're going to be in every game they play. Don't forget, they went to Oakland and beat the Raiders.
Number 5.
This team I like more than everybody else. I like Carolina. Okay, I know this. Physically, they can match up with anybody. And remember, Cam has not had a turnover in the last 2 games. They've won both. In Cam's career, when he doesn't turn the ball over, he's won almost 80% of his games. And they're also second in the NFL at forcing 3-and-out drives. I love their front 7 defensively. I told you last week, and I believe this to be true, Carolina is the one team in the league that this point forward is going to change the perception of what you think about them. Carolina 5.
Number 4.
These teams, I think, can win the Super Bowl, and right now the Raiders are one of them. Okay, it's crazy, right? But they're the first team to score over 30 points against Denver since 2015. They are number 2 in the NFL in over-the-top plays. I think they have a very, very elite offensive line. They may have the deepest receiving core in the NFL and an exciting Derek Carr at quarterback who looks like a young Aaron Rodgers. I've got the Raiders at 4.
Number 3.
Seattle can be ugly, but again, Russell Wilson not at full strength. They allow only 16 points a game. That's 3rd best in the league. They're number 3 in sacks. It's a team. Jimmy Graham was remarkable last night. It is a team that's got its flaws. But if you're talking about playmakers, they've got them. And when Russell Wilson, with an excellent veteran coach, Pete Carroll, gets healthy, I think they're a top 3 team in the league.
Number 2.
Dallas Cowboys. Now, they have the easiest schedule in the NFL this year based on games played through Week 9. But they're number 1 in rushing, and they're number 1 in time and possession. And they have the best unit in the NFL. That offensive line, of all the units, offensive line, defensive line, secondary, running back, skill play, that offensive line's the best in the league. It's the best unit, period, in the league. And anybody connected to it is elite. They are, on 4th down this year, 7 for 7. That's some sort of record, I'm sure. I don't have the guy to look it up, but that's got to be a record. They're literally perfect, 7 for 7 on 4th down.
Number 1.
The New England Patriots, 14-8 off buys. Here they come off a bye. In November, last 17 games, they're 14-3. Brady's having a remarkable year. They've made some interesting defensive moves, but I like them on the back end of their defense. I like their offensive line. I think they have the second best receiving core in the league to Oakland. And I think New England's the best coach, best quarterback combination in the National Football League. They're number one. And this is the Herd. Cris Carter, top of next hour.
Still eating over there?
Yeah, Nick Wright next hour. Oh, and I also have Hunch or lunch next hour.
You're eating your lunch right now. What are you eating?
Very excited. Very, very excited. So, yesterday, Cris Carter went nuts on this Jared Goff situation. And Cris Carter's like, listen, Jared Goff's not playing because Jared Goff stinks. This is Cris Carter from yesterday's show. Listen to this.
Like, when are the cookies going to be ready? When the stadium's ready? I mean, my goodness, like, I need the cookies now. I'm in L.A. I don't care if he completes 50% of his passes. He'll get better in the game than he will sitting on that sideline. The guys know he can't play. They see him in practice. They know he can't play. They messed this pick up, Colin. No one wants to say it. But it's a tremendous blunder on the organization for this team to move from St. Louis and to be here in L.A. and the fans to be yelling, we want Goff.
Could I make an argument that Jeff Fisher and the Rams don't necessarily scheme, draft, or design offense very well? If you go look at Jeff Fisher in the last 15 years, I looked this up this morning. Jeff Fisher has only had 16 appearances. Players in 15 years, only 16 times have appeared in a Pro Bowl. Now compare that to Mike McCarthy and Sean Payton that are, 75% higher. So can you say, listen, Jeff Fisher's a good coach. They obviously get the defensive side of the ball, but it just doesn't work on offense. They've drafted 10 offensive linemen in 4 years. None of them are great. 4 years, 2.5 a year. None are good. Now, a couple are okay, but their offensive line's pretty average. So can you make that argument? They just don't do the offensive side of the football very well. Ian Rappaport was on our show yesterday. He talked about Jared Goff and Jeff Fisher and why he won't start him.
As long as they are in playoff contention, as long as they are still alive, still potentially have a chance to win the division, it's going to be Case Keenum because they believe he is their best chance to win games and he is their best quarterback. Now, when that changes, when the perspective moves from 2016 to 2017 and beyond, then you probably will see Jared Goff because then it'll be about the future and learning and getting him in there and trying to not see what they have because they really do like him and they like what they've seen in practice. But when the focus shifts, then you'll see the number one pick. That's as it was explained to me before Sunday's game.
All right, so Cris Carter says, guys, a bust. Ian says, listen, that they're not going to go to him yet. If they're out of playoff contention, they believe the best playoff shots with Case Keenum. And I'll say this, listen, I went and looked through this morning. Of the 32 teams in this league, the Rams are still playoff viable. There's only 2 dogs in this league that are toast, San Francisco and Cleveland. There's 2 other teams, Jacksonville and Chicago, that need to win this weekend. But the Rams in that division, Arizona, Seattle, those are vulnerable teams. And San Francisco is awful. So the Rams kind of feel like, listen, we're still in the playoff race. We're going to play Case Keenum. When you watch Hard Knocks, Jared Goff did not look good. Totally get that. But again, I'll go back to this. The only reason Paxton Lynch is not playing in Denver either, is he a bust? If you just, instead of worrying about number 1 pick, Paxton Lynch was a first-round quarterback in Denver. He's not playing. Denver doesn't want to play him. Why isn't he a bust? He's not better than Trevor Siemian? You kidding me? Trevor Siemian can't move the ball. So is he a bust? No. John Elway's got a plan. Jeff Fisher's got a plan. So I don't know enough about Jared Goff. Watched them in college, watched Hard Knocks, watched as much as anybody could watch him in the preseason. My takeaway is I think he's got a little bit of Matt Ryan. I mean, Matt Ryan's having his best year. What has Matt been in the NFL now, 7-8 years? So, I think we want everybody to jump into this league. I remember covering Warren Sapp as a kid. He wasn't dominant. It's the Herd. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy Joining me as always, I was talking about this earlier. Some people are suggesting that Richard Sherman's a dirty player. I don't think there are a lot of dirty players in the NFL. I think Vontaze Burfict at Cincinnati is a dirty player. I think there have been instances when Ndamukong Suh has looked like a dirty player. I watched Richie Incognito last night. I thought he played a very clean game. Listen, this is a very physical sport, and there's also a lot of gamesmanship. So dirty player to me means you're trying to end people's careers. Vontaze Burfict, when I see him go low on Martellus Bennett, I think, dude, you're trying to end a guy's career. I have no patience for that. That's a dirty player. Ndamukong Suh made some moves early in his career. It looked like he was trying to end careers. I have no patience for that. I don't see Richard Sherman as a dirty player. I don't. I think he's really, really good. I think he's super talented. I think, it's the difference between arrogance and confidence. What's the difference? It's a very thin line. I think if you look at Seattle's culture, it's hyper-aggressive. So a lot of the guys you think in this league are, quote, dirty are Seahawks, because that's kind of what Pete creates. So I don't see him as a dirty player. Let's bring on Cris Carter, Hall of Famer, 8-time Pro Bowler, at Cris Carter 80 on Twitter. Okay, so I want to go into this deep discussion of dirty players. I don't think Richard Sherman's dirty. Do you?
No, he's definitely not a dirty player.
Okay, now what about that? What about that hit on that receiver last night? The last play of the game.
Well, the quarterback's outside the pocket.
Okay.
So in that's really just taking advantage of the rules. The rules are
here we are right now.
Yes, quarterback's outside the pocket. Once he escapes outside the pocket, the DBs can engage in contact because he's outside the pocket. So the wide receivers have to know that you have to be more aggressive. And if I'm with the running quarterback, like I played with Randall Cunningham, Dante Culpepper, man, when he bolts, I got to go to grab him. First contact wins in the NFL. So I would have grabbed Richard Sherman before he grabbed me. So that's the wide receiver not knowing the rules and taking advantage of that.
You were a guy that knew the rules.
You got to know the rules. You got to know the rules so you can play the game at the maximum level.
So that's one of your knocks on Dez Bryant, that he not always in. You said yesterday, you said football IQ, sometimes he's not engaged.
Well, I didn't say, this is what I do. I question how much football he can learn because the lack of them moving him around in different spots.
Okay.
That's what I know about coaches. I played every position. When I was a Z receiver. A Z receiver is a fast guy who can stretch the field because we had Jake Reed. He could only play X. So I had to learn that, and then I went in the slot, and that's where I really made a difference. Then we got Randy Moss. Randy could really only play Z to start. So there go my job. So I had to go back over to X, and we've been playing this game a long time, and you can see how they move people around. It has a lot to do, and that's why Belichick, he only goes after a certain type of player. Typically, the New England Patriots have more college graduates than anyone in the NFL. And there's a reason why, because they changed their game plan more week to week than any other team in the league.
So when you watched that Buffalo receiver last night, he just doesn't understand the rules.
No, I mean, that's a viable play, and it's taking advantage of it. And you can't have no contact all the time because so many times the quarterback escapes the pocket. You have to, and that's just one of the few rules where they give the defense not an advantage, but they give them a chance to build a fight against the all-out assault on passing.
Hall of Famer Cris Carter, go to your career. There's a lot of guys. Darryl Green played forever. Who was a guy that wasn't your physical equal, but man, he knew the angles? Because that can extend. I mean, how long's Matt Slater played for the Patriots? You can extend your career if a coach is like Gerard Mayo, hurt. Belichick likes him. Junior Seau extended his career. Teddy Bruschi. Were there guys in the NFL that you knew they're just there because they get the game?
Yes, they're called football players. And they understand. Like, they might not have the measurables, but they know what to do, and they're in a system that allows them to be very productive. I played against a bunch of Hall of Fame cornerbacks, all right? Darryl Green was a guy who gave me a lot of problems. Now, I had him by 4 or 5 inches, maybe 20, 25 pounds.
Wow.
But his ability to anticipate and man, he could run so fast.
Yeah.
So that you could beat him and he could still recover.
Now, do you think some of that anticipation was film study?
A lot of it. Deion Sanders. People will never give him credit for the height, but Deion was one of the first cornerbacks to start studying when he went beyond 10 yards, what were the things he was going to do? He would route read. People said, oh, he guessing. No, Deion was really a student of the game, but because of his flash and other things, that's why, to me, I put Deion as the best cornerback in the last 30 years, but people won't give him credit for his intellect and his football IQ.
Well, we know Richard Sherman went to Stanford. I've talked to him several times.
And Jay Cutler went to Vandy. So what does that mean? But go ahead.
I like that.
Hey, but go ahead with that.
So when you talk corners today, how do you classify? Because I see Richard Sherman on that play, and I think that's just a smart football player.
Yes.
So do you think he's the best corner?
Is he the best corner in the game?
Right now.
He's one. This is what we've had a little dip because Revis Island, everybody's occupying that right now.
That's right.
Everyone's running free.
Right.
So who is the best? Josh is a good corner. I think with the rules, man, and you don't have a bunch of guys traveling around, Patrick Peterson, I would probably say, might be the best corner out there. But Richard Sherman is in that top 5 guys. He's one of the top playmakers, top cornerbacks, and especially all around. Can play coverage.
Intellect.
Can play zone, and also will tackle.
Chris Carter joining us. All right, I said this earlier. You can't fire a star quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. If this thing's not working, if it's combustible, if there's personality, whatever it is in Green Bay, what do you see with the Packers offense? Because, listen, we know Aaron's talented, but that doesn't mean he's flawless.
No, there are no flawless players in the NFL. But Aaron and what they've done from a management standpoint, they manage their organization not like a lot of other teams. And from a skill standpoint, they believe in drafting and producing a lot of homegrown talent.
Yes.
Trying to find guys under the radar, but I would debate if that is really working. Because what you see from Aaron Rodgers is a guy trying too hard. You see him holding the ball so much longer than he's ever used to, all right? Because guys aren't open down the field because they can't get separation. So they force Aaron to try to play spectacular. It's not Cam Newton has more weapons in Carolina, but Cam Newton kind of gets into the same thing. If you thrust all that responsibility on Aaron to make all the plays and to buy time for these guys to get open 4 or 5 seconds down the field, so when he doesn't play great, the team doesn't win. But that's the way it's set up. They don't have a running back. I mean, Eddie Lacy, he went to some fat farm, but as soon as he left the fat farm, he got back fat. So they don't have a running game. So all the pressure is on Aaron. And when you play in Green Bay, that track in Green Bay is a slow track. The grass is thick. It always stays a little moist. So Randall Cobb is a slot receiver. He's not that quick. Now, if he was in turf, if he was in Minnesota, if he was in Detroit, he'd be like Golden Tate. But when you play on that slow surface, you have to cater to the surface that you're playing on. When we played in Minnesota, we had an undersized defense and always really fast because we were playing inside.
And that was Tony Dungy's defense.
Yes, and I think that is the reason they did the same thing in Indianapolis and Tampa Bay. But I think that their system in Green Bay has not only failed them, but it's failed Aaron because they don't have really legitimate playmakers.
Okay, if I said to you, okay, Dak's winning, but to get to the Super Bowl, they're going to face Atlanta. It's going to be a shootout. They're going to face Pete Carroll, really smart, defensive guy. And they're going to face Belichick, who's 15-5 against rookie quarterbacks. If I said today, to win the Super Bowl, Tony Romo, Dak, who would you take? See, regular season, a lot of guys are good in September.
This is the thing about Tony Romo. Forget about the one-game scenario. I know this is your show, and I know it's your question. But I pose a question to you.
Okay.
If Tony takes over in week number 12, I believe Tony gets hurt before they get out the playoffs.
All right.
You see how he got hurt in the preseason? I mean, that wasn't a really big hit.
No, he was kind of awkward.
Falling awkward. And I would say that Tony Romo, he's not one of the best conditioned athletes. He's very concerned about his golf game, but his overall physique, he's not built like Russell Wilson. He's not built to take a whole bunch of hits, and I think that leads to injuries. He loves playing golf. To me, okay, no problem. But your body is your moneymaker, and his body is letting him down. So for me...
And not aging well, maybe.
Well, there's certain people, man, he's not a big guy. This is a big man's game.
There's a report out now, too, that he looked really ripped at practice, so maybe it's getting into his head and he's working out a little harder.
I'd like to see some pictures of that.
Yeah, me too.
Are you doubting that?
I haven't seen Tony Romo ripped forever. So that would be something new.
Did you notice that on players?
You notice players who their weight might have fluctuated. And you read the papers, you read the press clippings, so you know. You read training camp. Most veterans, what they say in training camp, how you doing? Oh, man, I'm lighter and faster than ever. Oh, really? But that's the typical answer that you have to have later in your career. I don't see that with Tony Romo. Now, I'm going to tell you who I do see that with. Tom Brady. Not a big weight guy, but very fundamentally as far as stretching and overall strength, his arm has gotten stronger the last 10 years in the league.
It has.
Yeah, because it's important to him. His body is important to him. What he eats is important to him. And that's why you see later in his career, him playing some of the best football we've seen.
Did you eat well? Would you take care of your body?
I did. I did everything I could. I did the blood testing with the food, ate everything organic, got my body fat down to like 5.2%.
Wow.
Like, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
So you were that was the Temple thing, man. You were on it.
At the end.
How many players were?
At the end of the career, I would say more players now have chefs, and there's also more organizations that prepare the food and put the players in a better position to be successful. Because it's about energy in, and you get energy from your food. So the better food you get, the better you're going to be able to produce energy on a regular basis to be able to do your job.
How many people on your phone? You have a lot of pro athletes on your phone. When you hammered Jared Goff yesterday, people loved it. People went crazy. Like, Colin, bring Chris Carter on. Oh, Chris Carter's going crazy on Jared Goff. When you were critical yesterday and you said kind of a bust, what did players say to you on your phone? Anybody give a little text?
This is my thing, man. I don't care what people think. You know, you put me on the show, you ask me what I think. I don't care what they say. I don't care if they go on and know the show. I don't care if they have the other show. It's my opinion. My opinion could be wrong, but my opinion can't be wrong because it's my opinion.
So you do think Jared Goff is just dude can't play?
Case Keenum, you tell me, where is Case Keenum the answer to anything? Besides his family members. Hey, that's my brother. That's my son. That's it. What is he the answer to? When you have Case Keenum on your roster, that means, okay, I got a second or a third backup who's got some experience. But I'm going to draft a kid from Cal with the number 1 pick. I'm moving this franchise, and he's not going to play? Like, they have made a colossal mess up. Admit it. We all make mistakes. Man, I've stepped in more piles of doo-doo than most people. But I admit, I clean my shoes off, change my shoes, and get to stepping. Try to avoid those.
It's great having you on.
Love
you should go into broadcasting. That's just as strong.
You know something? I've been sitting around. I miss TV.
It misses you.
Well, I think that there's a certain amount of broadcasts in the broadcast world they really don't want to hear the truth. But I think I'm going to find a spot somewhere. I think so.
Good luck for you on that.
Oh, I thank you, man. Appreciate it. If you can, put in a good word for
I
a brother.
I will.
Invite me back to L.A., too. I like this. I might go watch the Lakers play tonight.
Yeah.
In person.
That you're going to the Laker game?
I might do it.
Who did they play tonight? Somebody
Dallas.
cruddy. Oh,
yeah,
God, they'll win.
Dallas. What do you say? What?
Oh, Dallas is a mess. Mark Cuban's not giving out press passes. They're a mess. I love Mark Cuban, but that story's ridiculous.
It's kind of interesting.
And I love Cuban, but what in the world is he doing banning?
Have you read the whole?
Yes, and I know Mark Stein.
Explanation.
Mark Stein's a great guy. I don't know the other guy, but it's doo-doo. It's a mess. Like, Mark, stop it. You hate Trump. You're acting like that. I mean, seriously, it's like, come on now.
No politics for me today.
Yeah.
I know, you're right. My bad.
No politics for me today.
When you really need to be there, you really need an Interstate, the car battery auto text preferred. Test your batteries today. Find a location near you at interstatebatteries.com. Outrageously dependable. Interstate Batteries. Good to have you in. Good show today. Go vote today. National Vote Day. Go vote. Very excited. America. Glad I live in America. God, what a crazy election. You know, I said this earlier, is that if you add like I watched that game last night, I thought it was great. I thought it was spectacular. It was crazy. There were all sorts of mistakes. Everybody's complaining about the officials. It made it fascinating. And then I watched the game Denver and Oakland. I thought that game was fascinating. There's 32 NFL teams. 30 of the 32 halfway through the season are in it. Cleveland's not, and the Niners are a mess. Chicago, Jacksonville need to win this weekend. Let's add some context to it. The NBA halfway point last year, there were 7 teams that were not only out of it, they were San Francisco 49ers bad. There's 10 teams right now. We're 10 games into the NBA season. There's about 7 teams right now that you already, when you watch the Washington Wizards, you're like, they're bad. Pelicans, they're bad. Major League Baseball, a third of the sport at this year's All-Star break, done. So everybody's complaining about, oh, man, I can't watch. I thought that game last night was wildly entertaining. I thought Denver-Oakland, that wasn't even one of the close games. I thought it was wildly entertaining. 8 games on Sunday within a possession game. College football in the last month, how many great games there have been? I mean, seriously, Washington crushes everybody. Alabama crushes everybody. Clemson crushes everybody. Louisville crushes everybody. Nebraska, Ohio State was unwatchable. Michigan versus anybody now is unwatchable. So, this narrative that college football is having a great year, you watch the top 10 in college football, most of your top teams, there's 6 teams left that can win the national championship. Of 119, 6. There are entire divisions halfway through the NFL right now that are incredibly viable. AFC West, everybody can play. San Diego can play. They may have the best offense in the league, Denver the best defense. You go to the NFC East right now. I think Washington's the most underrated team in the league. Everybody can play. So I think people just want to complain. That game last night was terrific television. Congrats to my former employer. It was terrific television. It was a mess, but something like, that Arizona-Seattle game, it may have been a mess, but the last 45 minutes on TV were fantastic. Heard brought to you by TrueCar. Save time and money. Download their app. Configure the car you want. See what others paid. On average, TrueCar app users save $3,000 off MSRP. Time, money. Download the TrueCar app today. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Conor McGregor is in New York for UFC 205, and he doesn't need to take any Ubers, taxis, because he has a car to drive around New York. It's a $350,000 Rolls Royce with the word notorious across the side and a picture of his face, a huge picture of his face.
So this is what he drives?
This is what he drives. How much would someone have to pay you to drive a car around with your face plastered on the side?
I won't even wear. I got these shirts, these workout shirts. I didn't order them. They're gray. They have the herd on them.
Yeah, we all have them. We got them at the Christmas party last year.
I won't wear one.
Why?
Because it's my name on the shirt. I can't wear it. It's got a little tiny herd, and I put one on the workout, and I'm like, I can't.
You feel branded?
Yeah, I just can't do that. How dorky would I look?
Very. But I would give anything to see you driving a car with your face on the side. How much money would it take?
I wouldn't do it.
Like $5 million?
I won't even do a vanity license plate.
Of course you wouldn't. Why would you do a vanity license plate?
A lot of people do those.
You have to pay extra. And
yeah,
what would
it's
you
like
even
$30.
Yeah, but you don't like those kinds of things,
That's
especially
what I'm saying.
on cars.
No, I see.
And what would
you
even have your vanity license plate say? Colin?
Heard me. That's pretty good.
I would
what?
I would herd you.
I've got to be honest.
I would herd you if I saw that.
I think I'm going to get
give you a
that.
little rear end.
I've changed my entire paradigm of thinking. John, that's a good one. Heard me. I'll be on the 405. Honk at me and wave.
That's really strange. Okay. Did you watch the Manny Pacquiao fight this weekend?
No, I did not, but I heard Pacquiao looked pretty good.
Yes. And now people are saying that they would like to see, some people are saying they would like to see Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao fight again, which I think is kind of crazy because it was an extremely boring fight the last time they did. And Bob Arum is now saying that he believes the rematch will happen. To me, this is just a sign that they're kind of lost. UFC is in all the news right now. It's the headline. And all that boxing can come up with is Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather again.
Yeah. Well, I think it is. I think Bob Arum was the leader of the sport. He is aged, probably doesn't have the energy. That's pretty reasonable to assume. The UFC's been aggressive. Dana White's going a million miles an hour. Mm-hmm. The Fertitta family. Listen, boxing didn't die because it wasn't interesting. It died because it didn't have good leadership.
Yes. I agree with you. And finally, Paul George, did you see he kicked a ball into the stands and it hit a woman right in the face?
I know.
So immediately he got up and he gave her a hug and he said he was sorry, but he took it a step further and he sent her flowers and a note to this woman. I think we have a picture of what he sent her. Do we?
That was
Looks like maybe we don't.
Awfully nice
Oh,
of him.
there we go. I flowers.
Oh, I think that's incredibly sweet.
You think it's sweet?
Yeah, I like Paul George. I think Paul George. You know, he signed a big, long contract, didn't he?
Uh-huh.
I was hoping the Lakers could grab him. I like him.
I think the Lakers are probably better off without him.
You don't like him?
Just from like a maturity standpoint.
You don't think he's mature?
Clearly you haven't read some reports on Paul George. Nick, where are you on this? Paul George? Mature or not mature?
I don't know. I
Mature.
like him. I like him.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I like him.
There's certain reports you got to read on Paul George before you say you should join the Lakers.
What reports are you reading?
I'll show you after the show.
All right. Christine with the news.
Nick can
Well,
tell you.
that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Brand new season every week at DraftKings, destination for 1 week fantasy football. Use the code HERD. Play free with your first deposit for your share of over $1 million this weekend. DraftKings.com. See site for details. Let's bring on Nick Wright. Let's bring him on. So first of all, I want to ask you the fourth question first.
Sure.
I owe you $1,000.
You owe me, if we're going to be specific, $1,200.
Well, why do I owe you that?
Let's trace back to 1 week ago, almost exactly this time, right after the segment. You're getting ready to do Hunch or Lunch. You say to Goulet, hey, there's one line I've seen. Make sure it's not on Hunch or Lunch. Line of the year, bet of the year. Broncos, what do you think they are against the Raiders? They're a pick'em. They're a better team. Oh, my God, bet of the year. Guess who made it the bet of the year?
You.
This guy. Guess who now is down $1,200? This guy. Guess for whom $1,200 is a rounding error? That guy. So I feel like there is some money owed at this point.
What do you think about that, John?
Valid point.
Well, valid point.
I had that one too, but not for $1,200.
Using your reasoning, I would owe America, everybody that listens, $1,200.
Yes.
Okay, correct. However, before you do the picks on the air, you always give a preamble of, don't bet what you can't afford and this whole thing.
Right.
You looked me in my eye, man to man, knowing my issues, said bet of the year. That was your wink and a nod of put the house on it, Nikki. Go, do it.
God, I feel terrible.
Oh, yeah, clearly.
Okay, so an unbelievable stat.
This will blow your mind. It's gambling as well, but Patriots, Cowboys, they've played 18 games this year. The two of them. 14, 1, and 1 against the spread. Think about that for a moment. The Cowboys, week one of the season, they were 1-point dogs. They lost by 1. Since then, they have covered 7 consecutive weeks. So the Cowboys, if you bet them every week, you've never lost. The Patriots, they failed to cover the 16-0 loss, the final game without Brady. Every other game they've covered. So I don't know what this means, but that's jarring.
Yeah.
Because even great teams usually finish like 10-6 against the spread. So the fact that Vegas hasn't caught up to these teams, people like to bet the Cowboys. They like to bet the Patriots. They're still covering every single week.
So Vegas is getting clobbered by Dallas. Has to be.
14, 1-1. So the question that I have is, like, if that's not even more evidence that there's two teams and then everybody else.
No.
I don't know what is.
Listen, I put in my hierarchy today, I put Seattle third.
Yeah.
The gap between Seattle's consistency on offense and Dallas and New England,
it's remarkable.
It's a different game.
So like in the NFC, I think you had Seattle. I agree with you. Carolina's better than their record suggests.
Yeah.
They're a little dangerous if they get right.
Yeah.
But still, and in the AFC, what is it? The Raiders and the Chiefs but the gap between them and the Patriots, it's jarring. Typically in the NFL, you don't have two teams that just look like, all right, they're just better than everybody. And right now it looks like that.
It's funny, Nick Wright joining us, is that generally drama's great for us, but I've always felt it was overrated. The Cubs had the best record. The Cubs were favored in every series, and the Cubs basically tripled most World Series ratings in the last decade. That this idea that we want parity is a complete myth. That New England and Dallas have distanced themselves from the league, and if they neither team lost,
it'd be awesome.
It would break every Super Bowl record. That we're over inclined to gravitate toward people love underdogs and people. No, they don't. People want superpowers. We all wanted to be Spider-Man.
Well, and because it's football, even if you have an overpowering team, because it's one game samples, you know they could lose. Like, even if the Patriots are 15-1,
Right.
it's not like you're not going to watch the AFC Championship game because you know they can still get knocked off. But, yeah, I mean, I think a Patriots-Cowboys Super Bowl,
why do people play the lottery? They want to be rich. They
Right.
want to be powerful.
Yeah, of course.
We're jealous of power.
Yeah.
We're not turned off by it. All right, so you watched the entire Warriors game last
Total
night.
nerd. I have 2 TVs in my bedroom. Small TV, the Seahawks game. Big. I'm locked in. I'm watching every second of this Warriors season. I got to know what's going on.
Oh, by the
okay?
way, Klay Thompson.
Well, hold on. Before we get to Klay, here is the headline from yesterday is a really cool one, right? Steph, Friday in Los Angeles, first time in 157 games, he doesn't hit a 3. Breaks his record streak. He responds to that by hitting more threes than anyone has ever hit in a game. That's cool.
Yeah.
And it's like a reminder of how great he really is when he's on fire. But that game was also a reminder that this team hasn't found themselves yet. Here are some facts. The Pelicans have not won yet. This game was in Oakland. The Warriors at one point were up 21 points. The Pelicans have one good player, Anthony Davis. Their other good players injured. Steph, with 4 minutes left in the game, a game in Oakland that the Warriors had led by 21, with 4 minutes left, Steph had hit 10 of those 13 threes, and it was a 4-point game. Like, take a deep breath on that. Steph was playing out of his mind. You're playing a terrible team. You had a 20-point lead, and with 4 minutes left, it's a 2-possession game. That's problematic. And it's because Klay doesn't know his position on the team anymore. And the underrated quality since Mark Jackson's last year in Golden State up until last year, those 3 seasons, first in defense, second in defense, second in defense. That was a great defensive team. I was at that game Friday night. Tariq Black and Julius Randle are dominating them on the inside. Like, their total lack of rim protection. Plus, I saw Draymond, who's an okay three-point shooter, turn down open looks yesterday because it's not, last year it was pass, whoever's open, shoot it. Now I think there's more of a, well, wait, has Kevin gotten his shots? Like, and I'm not saying they won't figure it out, and people keep tweeting to me, well, what about the first year of LeBron in Miami? I get that. I think they started 8-9 or whatever, 9-8. But let's also remember that team didn't win the title. It's not like, they figured it out. They didn't win the title. And if this team doesn't win the title, it's a total disaster. And so I watched that game. It reminded me how deadly Steph is. And God, he is fun to watch. Even though I'm no Warriors fan, Steph on fire is theater. But it also showed some issues that they have.
So Boston's Isaiah Thomas says we're not very good. The Knicks are already a mess. John Wall last night gets thrown out. Yeah. Paul George says our chemistry's awful. And the Cavs look unbelievable.
Well, I just want to remind, because people, when I was tweeting about the positives and negatives last night about the Warriors, someone said, I didn't see you tweeting when the Cavs only beat the Sixers by 1. Just a reminder to the audience. The last time Cleveland lost a basketball game, Kevin Durant was on the Oklahoma City Thunder, and none of us had seen Draymond Green's penis. It was a different world.
Very good point.
It was a different world.
Very good point.
That's how long it's been.
Yeah.
Since the Cavs lost a game.
I think that's going to play on digital today.
I mean, it's the truth. Like, it was that the Cavs haven't lost a basketball game in 5 months. LeBron is coasting and averaging 1 rebound shy of a triple-double. Like, they are. Kevin Love finally has all that pressure off him that's been sitting on him since he went to Cleveland. If you watch the Cavs games, another team I've watched every game they've played this year, first few possessions of the game, they're running it through Kevin Love. Go get some buckets, big fella. Kyrie Irving, he was bad against the Sixers. Every other game he's been outstanding. LeBron is just playing chess master, waiting, getting his assists. And, I mean, the East is eating itself alive.
Alive.
While the Cavs just sit there undefeated coasting.
All right, it's election day.
Yeah.
And you think there's something about a coaching philosophy that fits?
Plays for the election.
Okay.
And so when I'm watching football, I wish more coaches had this philosophy. What does my opponent hope I do? I'm going to do the opposite. It's 4th and goal from the 1-inch line. The guys on the other sideline are saying, kick the field goal, please kick the field goal. That means If they want me to kick the field goal, I want to go for it. Figure out what my opponent wants me to do, I'm going to do the opposite. So I know there's people watching or listening right now that don't have a candidate, or they don't like either one, or they're just apathetic. They don't want to stand in line, so they're not going to vote. To those people, I ask you one favor. Think about the worst person you know. Who in your life that is in your orbit is the single worst person? Who do you think they want to win? Go vote for the other guy. Think about the worst person you know and who they want to win, and vote for the other person.
That's a good point.
That's enough of a reason to get your ass out of bed, get off the couch, go cast your ballot. I flew back to Texas to vote. Because I didn't have an absentee. I still have a home there. That's where I'm registered. I flew back to Texas to vote. Go vote, people. And if you don't know who to vote for, try to make someone bad unhappy. That would be my advice.
That was very good. You hear that, Goulet? That should be your new theme in life. Go the opposite. I never expect you to put in a full day's work, so go the opposite.
I gave you that license plate line. Isn't that enough
You're
for the
right.
day?
You're my bad. What would you think less of me if I had you heard me or something on my license plate?
I think that would be... listen, I'm the wrong person to ask. I think it'd be awesome. My old radio show before I got hired by
what was it
FS1
called?
was called What's Right. And
that's clever.
And I tried to get
You did.
I tried to get What's Right,
What?
but there was no way to make it work with the letter restriction, and it wouldn't make
Well,
sense.
for your California license, maybe you can try it out.
But that's not my radio show anymore.
So it was called What's Right.
What's Right with Nick Wright. Yeah, that's it.
You can have it be Get Right.
Get right.
Yeah.
Get it right.
Get it right.
Yeah.
There are things you can play with my name. Unfortunately, with the name Nick Wright, there are also wordplay you can do with my first name. That was, tragedy from childhood that we don't have to get into.
Hey, listen, I'm Cowherd.
I don't get it.
I mean, I got
You don't get it.
I got low self-esteem based on it. All right, good seeing you.
Thanks,
bud.
Colin.
Sooner or later. Oh, by the way, coming around the corner, we got Hunch or Lunch. So I'm going to owe more than Nick Wright, $1,200. It's the Herd. So how's your fantasy football season going? Starting running back already pulled both hamstrings. Sleeper pick still sleeping. Go to DraftKings.com, the destination 1 week fantasy football. No season-long commitments. DraftKings.com. You put in the code HERD, you know it, you will play for free this weekend with your first deposit. $1 million this weekend in total prizes. That is DraftKings.com. Every week is a brand new week at DraftKings.com. Every week, pick the contest, draft your team, and you follow the action live. DraftKings.com. Eligibility restrictions may apply. See their website for details. That is DraftKings.com. Use the code HERD and play free with your first deposit. Christine Leahy joining me. We are ready now. We do it every week at this time. End of the show on Tuesday. It's called Hunch or Lunch. 7 NFL games. I've got to get 4 right within a point, or I buy lunch for the staff. Here we go.
Come on! Colin's got a hunch.
Tell me you weren't thinking this too.
If he's less than 50%,
that is nothing.
We'll get lunch. It's Hunch or Lunch in the Herd.
Here we go.
First one is Browns at Ravens.
Thursday night game.
Thursday night game. Browns at the Ravens. Do we know who the quarterback is yet?
For the Browns.
Yeah.
Kessler, right?
Should still be
Yeah,
Kessler.
it's Cody.
Yeah.
I think
they
that's what they're going
chose to
with
start
Cody
him.
Kessler.
So it's the Browns at the Ravens.
Yes.
Baltimore minus 3.5.
It's nice that you agonize over that half. It's 10.
Oh my gosh.
Baltimore's favored by 10.
The Browns are generally spotting about 10.
That's crazy.
I don't know. I think Baltimore coming up that Steelers win, going to go back down to earth. Wow.
Chiefs at Panthers.
I like Carolina, man. I'm on the Carolina bandwagon. I am. I think this point forward, they're a different team. They're starting to run the football. Cam's not turning it over. I think Carolina's going to go on a big winning streak.
Okay.
I'm going to take Carolina minus 2.5.
Nice. -3.
All right.
Close. Vikings at Redskins.
Oh, God, that's tough. I don't know what. I like the Vikings, but they're a mess. Vikings at now Washington's not as good out of division. Washington's great in division. They're not as good out of division. I'll go Washington minus 2.5.
Nice. Also -3.
Okay.
Falcons at Eagles.
Oh, boy.
You look confused.
I'm not sure who's favored.
That's where you got to start.
Falcons. Now, what the weather's going to be starting to get cold now in the Northeast, and I think Vegas thinks about that.
Do you want to know the weather report?
What am I now? What am I? 2-1 or what? 2-1.
2-1.
Okay, I'm going to go. I don't know who's favored. I'm going to go.
It's only supposed to be like 57 degrees. It's not that bad.
Okay, Atlanta -2.
Philly -1.
Yeah,
All right,
that's
so
a rough
you're-
one. That to me, I didn't know who'd be favored.
You're 2-2 now.
Okay.
49ers at Cardinals.
God, why don't you give me games I want to watch?
Because those are easier.
God, seriously. That's why I'd never be a movie critic. Because I'd want to go watch Argo like 12 times. I'd never want to watch the crappy movies.
Falcons-Eagles is a solid game.
Yeah, that was okay. So what's this one again?
49ers at Cardinals.
Arizona's off a bye, right? So Arizona should be favored. I'm going to say Arizona -5.5. What?
That's a weird one.
What?
13.5.
Oh, my God. That's a ridiculous number.
That's why it's in there.
Kaepernick is coming around, baby.
Okay, this next one is a good game.
Now I have to get this right.
And you have to get it right.
All right.
Seahawks at Patriots.
No, okay, so Seattle short week.
Patriots off a bye.
Good call. That's a good call.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the ultimate. New England's
This
going
is the Sunday night game.
Okay, so New England's off a bye and Seattle's on a short week. I wouldn't be surprised if this is New England minus. Now wait a minute, that's hold on. New England minus.
What were you going to say?
6.5.
7.5. Nice.
All right. What were you
Yeah.
going to say originally?
I was going to go 10, but I'm like, no. Pete Carroll, get in big television games. Seattle is usually very good on TV.
Okay, so for all the money, Cowboys at Steelers.
Okay, so there's a lot of psychology here. Because Pittsburgh is getting hammered for how they played. So I'm going to tell you right now, that number it better not be very big because Pittsburgh's going to play. Pittsburgh's had moments when they destroyed Kansas City. Pittsburgh's getting a lot of outside pressure right now. They'll play well. And they just played like crap against Baltimore. And Dallas is going, but I hate Pittsburgh's defense. Honestly, Dallas is the better team. The question becomes, how small of a number is it? I'm going to go Dallas minus 1.5.
Cowboys getting 2.5.
Pittsburgh's favored?
Wow.
I knew that wouldn't get you.
That's a good choice.
Pittsburgh is favored. Vegas is broke by Monday.
Be careful. You don't want to cost people a lot of money.
I get the Dallas Cowboys and points.
See, that's what scares me.
Okay, so time out. You know what that
is?
is?
As a Cowboys fan, that terrifies me.
Okay, that's the game. Every week there's a game. Every couple of weeks there's a game you're like, Vegas made a mistake. Pittsburgh's winning that game. Pittsburgh is winning that. Every time there's a game like this, you think Vegas is out of their gourd.
Because they know something? What do they know?
They just look at, I don't know what they know. Inside sources. I don't know. But I'm telling you right now, the fact that Dallas is a dog, a field goal dog, that doesn't even sound right. How many people were playing that game with me and they thought Dallas would be favored by a field goal?
For sure.
Wow.
You'll watch that one.
Just got this from the NFL. 77 games this year decided by 8 points or fewer. 71 decided by 7 points or fewer. Both are the most in the first 9 weeks of an NFL season. Don't tell me the NFL's bad. It's been a very, very competitive season. Has it been over-officiated? Has there been some clunky quarterback play? College football's been nothing but routes. Nothing but routes. Go to theherdnow.com. I have a massive surprise guest on tomorrow's show. I can't wait. Unbelievable. Hey. Oh, I've already read this spot, didn't I?
So tell us who the guest is.
I don't have any more spots. I can have my tuna sandwich and go home. Okay, so I want everybody to go out and vote.
Why?
I just think it's important that America's...
You're very on this today.
I want America to vote today. It's very important.
Are you gonna vote?
Oh, I vote for harmony. I want America to put their arms around each other and give them a big hug. My wife and I are getting along right now. America's good. I think America's never been better. I'm for more hugs, more harmony. What are you looking at me like?
You're creeping me out. You're really creeping me out.
No, I just want people to vote. I looked at the lines this morning to vote, and it made me feel
like the actual lines of people?
Yeah, it made me feel good about America. More people than ever are engaged. We could have more people vote than ever before. America's engaged. These candidates stink. This is like the Jags playing the Titans if it was a football game. But you know what? It's got people worked up, and it's got people engaged, and they're voting, and I love that.
I'm staying out of it.
Speak for yourself later on FS1. It's the Herd.